Welcome to this new repair video. So today we're going to be looking at repairing the belts, replacing the belts on the CD player part of the Sony HTC-NX1. Last year the tape decks, I replaced the belts on them. The belt kit was very easy to buy from eBay, as was the belt kit for the CD drive as well. So it's going to be a fairly straightforward repair. Unlike the tape decks though, the CD drive has not started malfunctioning because of the belts. However, as you'll see in this video, the belts are quite thin, they're very long, and they are now 20 years old, so really I feel that the time has come to make the change. Now, fortunately there's a lot of support material out there for this. When I did the tape decks, I just made it up as I went along, as it were. However, with the CD drive, I've had a little look online, and there is available a Sony repair manual, a repair and servicing guide, which tells you exactly how to change the belts, but is also very handy in the respect that it lists every single component used in the machine, as well as circuit diagrams should any other components need replacing along the way, but hopefully not. So here we have the machine in question. So it actually is two separate components, as you can see. The HTC-NX1 is this part, and then the part we're actually going to be opening is this, which has a separate model number, which is the HTC-NX1. Now this one seems to be fairly generic. However, looking at online, this part seems to differ from country to country. And HTC-NX1 seems to be the UK model. It has different model numbers for different countries. Some countries seem to get buttons in the middle here, which this one doesn't have. All share the same features and all compatible with the tape and CD player here. Now, this is a belt kit that was purchased, and because it's the correct belts straight away, I don't anticipate any problems with changing them. There were certainly no problems with changing the tape deck. So now let's get it opened up and let's have a little look inside and see how the CD player functions. Just as a side note, there's only 5 screws holding the case on here. One at the top there, which I've taken out. 1, 2 there, and the same around the other side. So now we're inside the unit. Basically, the belts are all contained over this side here. And according to the instructions, we can simply access the belts by undoing this bracing piece across the top here, which will reveal them all. And as you can see, they are quite long, and that one actually, there's not a lot of tension left in that. It's quite loose. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this performs afterward. It's not malfunctioned, well, many times, maybe once, but it's, yeah, I just feel that after 20 years the time is ready for them to be done. And just in case there's any doubt as to when this was built, there is the build date contained on that pulley on the tape deck. So I'm going to give you a chance to see this in operation before the belts are actually changed. So I've just grabbed the first CD that came to hand, which happened to be this one. We're not going to play it, we're just going to use the disc for demonstration purposes. So just to recap, this is a 5 CD changer. Each CD is kept in a stacked up formation in this area here. And when they are ready to be played, they are, well, the stack is lined up with the player part where the laser is in here. The previous disc is ejected if necessary, and then the new disc is drawn in. Information regarding it is displayed on the screen. As we can see at the moment, there are no discs in there, it is totally empty. and that corresponds with what we can see on the screen here, which says CD, no disc. It does have CD text as well. It's a very nice little machine. And then of course the whole setup is driven by the belts at the side here. Now as it moves around, you will see that this one has got quite a bit of flex in it, and it does flex as the system starts and stops. It changes gear, so this is used for moving the stack of CDs up and down, as well as drawing them in and out of the player part. So let's just put this disc in. Doesn't really matter which slot we put it in, but we could put it in number 3, for example. So this will now eject number 3. There we go. So we'll put it in. Now if I press the number 3 button, it will play the disc straight away. However, we don't want to do that. I just want to insert the disc. There it is, fed straight in. But let's say we wanted to put a different disc in. So, still within the same pack, because there's a couple of CDs in here. Let's make it a bit more interesting. We'll put one in number 5. And then we'll put one in number 1 just to space it out even more. There we go. So we'll press this as though we're going to play it, and then we'll make it change to number 5 so you can see it travel the maximum distance. So we're playing that, and if we press number 5 to make it start on that, and we'll stop it before it actually starts playing and I run into YouTube copyright problems. But yeah, you get the basics of how this works. So now we'll take the top off it to access the belts and get those changed. There's 4 belts to change in total, so slightly less than what we had to do with the cassette deck, which is functioning perfectly and hiding under here. So first and foremost, before we really start dismantling this, it's important to note that I have uncoupled this unit now from the HTC-NX1 part, so there is no power to this while I am doing this job. Let's make a start. So let's start putting new belts on. Obviously we've got 4 here to do, so we'll get these first 3 done, and then we shall locate and replace belt number 4, which is certainly going to require a little bit more digging and a little bit more undoing of screws, but shouldn't be too bad. So the longest one, I'm going to lay that out first. I'll zoom out a little bit. The longest belt I'm saving till last because that one came off first, and just seeing how this went together. What I will do as well is, I've noticed there is a little bit of silicone grease on the gears from the factory. I'm going to leave that be because I do not have any more grease. However, what I do have, and I will do this, I should have done this to the tape motor, is an oil pen. Now this is actually, the purpose of this really is for model trains. That's the other thing that I do now. This oil isn't like engine oil, it doesn't have any detergents in or anything like that. It is simply a lubricating oil, and I'm going to put a little bit on the motor that drives the CD drive, just prolong its life a bit, keep it nice and quiet, and I'll probably do the tape decks while I'm at it. So I'll try and get in a little bit closer to see what I'm going to do with that. Now thankfully there is not quite a hypodermic needle, but a needle on the end of this, which will give us the smallest possible drop of oil onto this motor. And I'm going to put the oil just into there. How we can see that? There's the tiniest little drop. Just to, again, like I say, help prolong the life of the motor and help keep it nice and quiet in future. There we go. Plenty in there now, just spin that. It wasn't a particularly noisy motor, but as we're in, we might as well do it. So anyway, belt replacement time. Now a lot of these are very similar sizes, so it might just take a moment to work out exactly which one goes where. In fact, you know what? I would actually say they are all the same size, which is perfect. It makes life a lot easier, apart from obviously the long one. We know where that goes. So, bottom one first. I was obviously very careful before not to get any oil on the plastic pulleys here. The oils went purely onto the motor. I'm just going to make sure that belt has gone on straight. Not quite happy with that. You do not want the belts twisting, really. That's good. I have to get a little bit more light onto the subject, just to be on the safe side. I think we've got it there now. Yeah. Happy. Shines a little bit more light on there. Yes. Looking good. Now, what this will do, as soon as we fire it up again, this deck will spend a minute or two calibrating itself. Because as soon as you've taken the power off to it, it loses any memory of whether there's a CD in there or not. So it needs to check to make sure there aren't any in there. So it will cycle through. The stack, pulling them in one by one into the playing part, just to make sure that it has got or not got a CD in. Next belt. So it's quite tight around here, so I'm just going to put it around this pulley first. He says. I have to say, it is a lovely piece of engineering. Obviously, with a lot of devices now just play digital music and have no moving parts. But they're not as exciting, are they, as something like this? That, you know, somebody had to sit and design all this. And that really excites me. You know, somebody sat and designed all this, made this thing a reality. There's a lot of thought gone into this. Yes. Yeah. Right, that's done. So the third and final belt for this side is the big long one, the one that really was loose, which will go around that pulley at the top, in the top notch. Oh, that's a lot, wow. Even just putting it on there feels totally different to the one that came off. Yeah, there's tons of tension in there now. Wow. Yeah. Right, there we go. So, that's the first 3 belts done. And now for the elusive belt number 4, which I can reveal is hiding in this corner here. And there's quite a lot of screws to undo to get into that part. The ones we've undone already, oops, I believe, yes, we will be able to put back in, and there won't be any problems there, so that's good. However, we're going to have to take out all this top part here. Shouldn't be too big a job, it's not that daunting, but we'll see. Anyway, first and foremost, let's get this bracing bit across the top put back in, and then we can move on to the next stage. Right, I'm going to change the angle of the camera to get a much better view of what we're about to do next. Same screwdriver part, so let's take this off. There's the new belt there, we'll just keep that to one side for now. Ah. Oh, it's very dirty inside there. It's very dirty indeed. There's a lot of CDs have been through there over the years. I wonder if that would just lift out. Yes, it does. There we go. That's one of the decks. And there is the final drive belt. So while we're in, we'll just get it changed immediately. Ooh, it's very shiny and greasy, that belt. Doesn't feel very nice at all. In fact, actually, let's just change the camera angle slightly to get a better look at that. It's not the cleanest in here, despite it being sealed, because obviously there's been 20 years worth of CDs going through here. The lens looks alright, just this little here is a bit mean, to be honest. And so is that pulley there, around where the motor is. My goodness me. That belt has been on its way out, I would say, because it's left some nice horrible black deposits in there. And nobody's been in here and oiled this before. I know that for a fact. I am the first person to open this, so yeah, it just seems to be 20 years of wear and tear, I guess. There's plenty of silicone grease on the parts here. Again, a fantastic bit of electronic engineering. Before I do anything though, I'm not going to put the new belt on straight away. I am going to give that pulley spindle a good clean with some, well, certainly with a cotton wool bud, and oil that motor too. That one there that it mates with, that pulley, is not dirty at all really. It seems to be okay. Just the motor one, which is interesting. So we'll get it cleaned up and then we'll fit the new belt to it after oiling the motor, of course. So I've just spun the end of that motor past the cotton wool bud, and I have to just adjust the focus slightly, but that is basically what's come off it. It is absolutely disgusting and filthy. So we'll give the motor a quick oil and then we'll put the belt on. So with the motor now cleaned up and lubricated, we'll install the final drive belt. I also have put a tiny drop onto the motor which spins the CDs as well, as that one does the most work. So final drive belt. We'll go around the motor first. Finally around that. Oh yes. Wow. plenty of tension there, which is good. Shine that there. Just oh, it does. Is it twisted? Can't tell. Alright, move this across here to let the flap up and down here, which stops the deck. That stops CD ejecting. Right, yeah, that is twisting. That I'm not happy with that. I'm just going to put it. Is that no? That's twisted the wrong way. Oh, it's really twisted. Maybe I should have just been happy with it. No, don't just want to settle for it the first time. I want to get this absolutely right. We really don't want to be going into here again for another 20 years if it lasts that long, and if the parts are still available then. Ah, that's why the belt is greasy. There's silicone grease on it from the factory on the gear here. There's not a massive amount I can do. Should have cleaned it perhaps. Yeah, it's making that belt greasy. Doesn't move that much though, really, by the look of it. It's functioned alright so far. Yeah, it's fine. Okay, so that is all 4 belts replaced. So now the next job is really to just adjust this camera a little bit more. There we go, get it a bit more central, there we go. There we go. So what we need to do now is we need to reinsert this. I have given this a wipe down as well, so it's going back in clean, not dirty. So it's nice, fits in one way only, which is perfect. And then now we have to work out how that goes back in. Yes. Some little black clips here which correspond with the lug on there, so that needs to slide into there. That floats nicely there, that. Yep. So next task is to get this screwed back down, and then we'll be ready to test it. How exciting. I think with things like this they look far more complicated than they actually are. It's very logical really. Like when I did the tape deck, I actually lifted the whole CD module out. Turns out that was actually unnecessary, but I'm glad I did it all the same because it sort of helped me learn about it too. But again, looked very complicated, but all the wires and all the ribbon cables underneath, I may have said this in the previous video, they only go in one way round and into one slot, a little bit like a computer. So it's really, really difficult, I feel, to actually get it wrong. As you've just seen there, this is not a magnetic screwdriver that I'm using, so they do like to fly off unless I'm very careful, these screws. So for me now, we'll have a proper test and we'll have a look and make sure that it does function correctly after we've just pulled it all to bits. So next stage is we're going to plug this back into the other part, the amplifier part, the HTC-NX1, and then we'll fire it up and it will do, like I said before, where it will have a hunt and try and work out if there's any CDs actually in, and then like before we'll try in a couple in just to see if it's working correctly. So if I just plug this wire back in, it's a bit awkward obviously, I'm working in the very restricted room here. Right, there we go. Right, so using the remote, we'll power up and we'll see what happens now. Just realising there is no CD in there at this second. Next part. So that's CD2, it'll just cycle through them all the way to 5. That's number 5 that's just gone in there. So now, unless I power it off again, it now knows it hasn't got any CDs. And that's the cycle complete. And corresponding with the fact that it now knows that it's empty, it's telling us there's no disc. So, next job is put the lid back on and get it installed properly back into the hole that it lives in normally. But of course, we'll have one last quick test just to make sure that everything is right. We didn't put anything into slot number 2 before, actually, so we'll try that now. Just to see it work. Play. That sounds good. That sounds really good. Working just perfectly there. Eject. Perfect. There we go. So, let's get the lid back on and put it back in its home. So for the final bit, I've unplugged the unit again just to give me more access, and we'll get it reassembled now. So there we have it. The radio is back in its home again. Job done. It's all powered on, working nicely. Again, because I disconnected it, when I put it back together, it cycled through hunting to see if there are any CDs in the deck, which obviously there aren't. Sounds sweet, running nicely, so hopefully that'll be the end of the troubles on this side for a while. Next project at some point in the future is the HTC-NX1 side. So this side I've never actually been into, but considering it's 20 years old, for about the last 17 years it's had a very, very annoying fault with it, and it's actually quite common apparently. I've seen a few on eBay with this same fault, in that the volume control, when turned, does not do anything really at all. Now this isn't too much of a problem because this unit has a remote with volume control on it, so it doesn't really cause that many issues. However, at some point in the future it would be nice to have it working properly, because that now is the only thing that's wrong with this unit. A quick browse through the service manual that's available for download will reveal the part number that we need, and I'm pretty sure, looking at it, it's a very generic variable resistor that actually looks similar to the kind of thing you'd find in a guitar amplifier. So I don't think we'll have too much trouble sourcing one, but again, it's not desperate. If I do it, I will make a video. Otherwise, that's it done for now.